You've done everything right. The morning routine, the journal, the meditation app. You've read the books, listened to the podcasts, managed your sleep, your diet, your relationships. You've manifested. You've affirmed. You've told the universe exactly what you want. And still, there's that hollow feeling at 2 a.m., that restlessness you can't name, that creeping suspicion that everyone else has figured out something you haven't. Here's the truth no one wants to tell you. You are not failing at happiness. Happiness is failing you. It was designed to, not by self-help gurus, not by capitalism, though it certainly profits from your endless pursuit. No, this failure runs deeper. It's written into the very architecture of your consciousness, into the structure of desire itself. 200 years ago, a brilliant philosopher named Arthur Schopenhauer sat alone in his Frankfurt apartment and dismantled the greatest lie civilization has ever told. That happiness is a destination you can reach, a state you can achieve and hold. What he discovered wasn't pessimism. It was the first honest map of the prison we all live in, and the beginning of the only escape that works. Picture your mind as a house. You've spent your whole life in the upper floors, the rooms of reason, logic, conscious thought. You believe these rooms are you, that you are the one making decisions, setting goals, choosing your path. But beneath those floors, in the basement you've never visited, something else lives. Something ancient, something that was there before you learned to speak, before you knew your own name. Schopenhauer called it der Wille, the will, and it is running your life. Man can do what he wills, Schopenhauer wrote in On the Freedom of the Will, but he cannot will what he wills. Read that again. Let it sink in. You can act on your desires, but you cannot choose which desires arise. You did not decide to want love, success, pleasure, meaning. These wants emerged from somewhere beneath thought, beneath choice, from that basement you've never seen. The will, for Schopenhauer, is not your individual will, not your personal wants and preferences. It is something far more terrifying, the fundamental reality underlying all existence, the thing in itself that Immanuel Kant said we could never know. In his masterwork, The World as Will and Representation, Schopenhauer makes a claim that shattered the comfortable illusions of Western philosophy. Everything you see, trees, cities, other people, your own body, is representation, appearance. But behind every appearance, driving it from within, is will, blind, purposeless, insatiable striving. Your body is will made visible. Your hunger, your lust, your ambition. These are not choices you make. They are the will manifesting through you. You think you're driving the car. You are the car. Here's where it gets disturbing. The will has no goal, no final destination, no endpoint where it says, enough. It is, by its very nature, infinite striving. It wants because wanting is what it is. All willing, Schopenhauer writes, springs from lack, from deficiency, and thus from suffering. Desire is born from absence. You want what you don't have. You reach for what isn't there. This means that every desire, by definition, begins in pain. The wanting itself is a form of suffering, a gap between what is and what you believe should be. Think about the last time you really wanted something. A promotion, a relationship, a possession, a validation. Where did you feel that wanting? In your chest, in your stomach, an ache, a tension, a lack. The feeling of desire is not neutral. It's uncomfortable. It drives you toward action because staying in that feeling is unbearable. And here's the trap. When you get what you want, what happens? Relief, maybe a flash of pleasure. But then, notice what happens next. The satisfaction doesn't last. It can't last. Because the moment one desire is fulfilled, the will generates another, and another, and another. The engine never stops. There is no final satisfaction because the will doesn't want objects. It wants wanting, and you are its instrument. Schopenhauer saw our condition with devastating clarity. Life swings like a pendulum, backward and forward, between pain and boredom. Pain when you don't have what you want, boredom when you do. There is no third option. Consider the first pole, the pain of wanting. Imagine a man dying of thirst in a desert. Every cell in his body screams for water. His cracked lips, his pounding head, his failing organs, all manifestations of a single, all-consuming lack. His entire existence narrows to one point of desperate need. This is desire in its purest form. This is the will demanding. Now consider. In some ways, you live in that desert constantly. Not for water, for other things. For status, for love, for security, for meaning. The intensity varies, but the structure is identical. Lack generates desire, desire generates suffering, suffering demands resolution. The Buddha recognized this 2,500 years ago with his first noble truth. Life is dukkha, suffering, dissatisfaction, a wheel that keeps turning. Schopenhauer was one of the first Western philosophers to seriously engage with Eastern thought, and he saw in Buddhism a confirmation of what his own analysis had revealed. But unlike the Buddha, Schopenhauer didn't believe in nirvana, not for most of us. He thought escape was nearly impossible, because after you finally reach the oasis, there's the second pole, the emptiness of having. You get the thing, the job, the partner, the achievement. And for a moment, a brief, shimmering moment, you feel it. This is it. I've arrived. The intensity fades. The object that seemed to hold the key to your happiness becomes ordinary, familiar. The promotion becomes a new set of problems. The relationship becomes routine. And worse than the fading, the void. Schopenhauer describes this state with brutal precision. If it lacks objects of willing, because it is at once deprived of them again by too easy a satisfaction, a fearful emptiness and boredom comes over it. In other words, its being and its existence itself becomes an intolerable burden. This is boredom, not the mild boredom of a slow afternoon, existential boredom. The horrifying realization that having what you want is no better than wanting what you don't have. Maybe worse, because at least when you were striving, you had direction. You had the illusion of a destination. Now you've arrived, and there's nothing here. What do? You generate new desires. You find new lacks. You start the cycle again. The pendulum swings back toward pain. The will needs you hungry, and it always wins. Schopenhauer couldn't have imagined what was coming. He couldn't have known that his analysis would become the operating manual for an entire economy, that the pendulum would be accelerated, amplified, and monetized on a scale beyond comprehension. Welcome to the attention economy. Consider your smartphone. Every notification is a manufactured desire. a small wound of lack that demands you check, scroll, respond. The dopamine hit when you see engagement, that's the brief relief of the pendulum swing. The emptiness that follows, the need to check again, the swing back toward pain. Tristan Harris, former design ethicist at Google, has described how tech companies engineer variable reward schedules, the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. You never know when the next reward is coming, so you keep pulling the lever. Keep refreshing. Keep scrolling. But here's what's changed. In Schopenhauer's time, the pendulum swung slowly. You wanted something. You worked for it over months or years. You got it, or you didn't. The cycle had natural limits. Now the cycle runs in seconds. Want, click, have, empty. Want, click, have, empty. The pendulum has become a jackhammer, and it's destroying something inside you. There's a special cruelty to how the modern trap works. It's not just that your desires are being manufactured. It's that you're being shown, constantly, the satisfaction of others. Or what appears to be satisfaction. You're now exposed to thousands of people who seem to have gotten off the ride. The highlight reels, the curated arrivals. You're comparing your internal reality, the constant oscillation, to their external presentation. They're on the same pendulum. They're just photographing the upswing. But you don't see that. You just see evidence of your own failure. Meanwhile, an entire industry has emerged to help you escape. Set bigger goals. Manifest harder. Visualize success. These teachings don't free you from the will. They intensify it. They tell you the problem is that you're not wanting correctly. Every time someone tells you to level up your life, they're not offering you a way out. They're selling you a faster treadmill. Here's something remarkable. Schopenhauer anticipated Freud by nearly a century. Before psychology existed as a discipline, Schopenhauer understood that conscious thought is a small, bright room sitting atop a vast, dark mansion, that most of what drives us never reaches awareness, that the will operates beneath the threshold of consciousness, making us believe we're choosing when we're really being driven. Consciousness is the mere surface of our mind, and of this, as of the earth, we do not know the interior, but only the crust. This is why you can know, intellectually, that the new purchase won't make you happy, and buy it anyway. Why you understand that checking your phone compulsively is unhealthy, and reach for it anyway. Why you recognize that the relationship is toxic, and stay anyway. The will doesn't negotiate with reason. It uses reason. Your rational mind is a press secretary, Schopenhauer suggests, crafting justifications for decisions that have already been made in the basement. Jonathan Haidt, the social psychologist, rediscovered this with his metaphor of the rider and the elephant. You think you're the rider, steering the elephant of your impulses, but actually, you're a very small rider on a very large elephant. And mostly, you go where the elephant wants to go. But here's what matters for us. If the will operates beneath consciousness, then conscious strategies to defeat it are almost useless. You can't think your way out of the trap. You can't affirm your way to peace. The engine doesn't respond to your intentions. You are a machine built for wanting. And machines don't care if you're happy. They care if you're functional. Is there no way out? Schopenhauer, for all his darkness, offered glimpses of relief, not happiness. He was clear that lasting happiness is structurally impossible. But moments, gaps in the machinery, cracks in the wall of the will, the most powerful, aesthetic experience. When an external cause or inward disposition suddenly raises us out of the endless stream of willing, and snatches knowledge from the thraldom of the will. Then the peace, always sought but always escaping us on that first path of willing, comes to us of its own accord. What does this mean? When you stand before a great work of art, or lose yourself in music, or contemplate the beauty of nature, something changes. The will, for a moment, releases its grip. You stop wanting, you simply perceive. In these moments, you're not thinking about what the painting can do for you, how the symphony advances your goals, what benefit you'll extract from the sunset. You're just there, present, absorbed. The desires fall silent, and in that silence, there's peace. Not happiness, something different, something better. Schopenhauer called it the contemplation of the Platonic ideas, a direct perception of the eternal forms beneath the churning surface of representation. Schopenhauer believed that regular aesthetic experience could offer genuine relief, not escape from the prison, but moments of parole. This is why art matters, not as entertainment, not as status symbol, not as content to be consumed and moved past, but as a technology for temporarily silencing the will. Music, Schopenhauer argued, is the most powerful of the arts because it's the most direct expression of the will itself. It bypasses representation entirely. When you're lost in music, you're communing with the will itself. Modern research supports Schopenhauer's intuition. Studies show that aesthetic experiences can reduce activity in the default mode network, the brain region associated with self-referential thinking, rumination, and the generation of desires. Art literally quiets the wanting machine. These are moments, and you can't live in moments. So Schopenhauer points towards something more radical. The true escape, for Schopenhauer, is an occasional aesthetic relief. It's a fundamental transformation, the denial of the will to live. This isn't suicide. He explicitly rejected that as a solution, arguing that suicide is actually an act of the will, a final violent assertion of wanting the end of pain. True denial is something else. It's what the Christian saints achieved through asceticism, what the Hindu renunciants reach through detachment, what the Buddhist monks find through the extinction of craving, a state where the will gradually loses its hold, where desires arise and fade without driving action, where the world is seen clearly without the distorting lens of want. Schopenhauer describes the person who achieves this. He no longer sees before him those things which are the source of all distress and misery, and knows no dread of their loss. His state is what is called resignation, true indifference, and perfect willlessness. This is not nihilism, it's not depression, it's not giving up. It's something closer to what the Stoics called ataraxia, tranquility, or what Buddhist traditions call upekkha, equanimity. A fundamental shift in one's relationship to desire itself. The will still arises, but it no longer owns you. If you've made it this far, you might be feeling uncomfortable. You might be asking, what's the point? Here's where I have to be honest with you. I can't offer you lasting happiness. No one can. Anyone who claims otherwise is selling you something. But I can offer you something more valuable than the fantasy, the dignity of seeing clearly. There's a particular suffering that comes from believing the lie, believing that happiness is achievable, that you're failing because you haven't found it, that the next thing, the next technique, the next breakthrough will finally deliver you to the promised land. That suffering is unnecessary. When you stop expecting lasting happiness, something unexpected happens. You start noticing. The small things, a conversation, a meal, the light through the window, not as means to an end, not as stepping stones to satisfaction, but as what they are. This is what mindfulness traditions have always pointed toward. Not feeling good, but being present. This difference is everything. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, discovered something similar in the camps. Happiness cannot be pursued directly, he argued. It can only emerge as a side effect of engagement with meaning. It is the very pursuit of happiness that thwarts happiness. Notice, not the pursuit of pleasure, but the pursuit of happiness. The desperate grasping for a stable state of satisfaction. That grasping is the problem. Nietzsche, who read Schopenhauer deeply, offered a different response to the same dilemma. Amor fati, love of fate, not acceptance, not resignation. Love. Yes, the pendulum swings. Yes, desire is endless. Yes, satisfaction evaporates. But this is life. This is what it means to be conscious, to be human. And there's something almost beautiful in it, the absurd heroism of creatures who keep reaching despite knowing they'll never arrive. My formula for greatness in a human being, Nietzsche wrote, is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. This isn't about pretending the trap doesn't exist. It's about finding meaning within the trap, making peace with the pendulum, not fighting its rhythm, but learning to dance with it. It's important to understand this paradox. Knowledge of the trap changes your relationship to it. Once you see the machinery, you can't be fully captured by it. The desire still arises. The wanting still burns. But there's a small space now, a small gap, a moment where you can observe rather than obey. Psychologists call this metacognition, thinking about thinking. You can want the thing and simultaneously know that getting it won't satisfy you. This doesn't kill the wanting, but it loosens its grip. You can start choosing more consciously. You can pursue goals while holding them loosely. You can enjoy pleasures without expecting them to save you. You can build a life without believing it will deliver eternal satisfaction. This is freedom, not absolute freedom, not escape from the human condition, but a different relationship to the condition, a kind of wisdom. In the end, Schopenhauer's greatest gift isn't pessimism, it's honesty. Most of human civilization is built on avoiding this truth. We construct elaborate systems of distraction, ambition, and hope to keep ourselves from seeing the pendulum. We sell and buy promises of lasting happiness. Schopenhauer looked directly at what everyone else was avoiding, and he cleared the air. You don't have to keep pretending. You don't have to keep failing at an impossible task and blaming yourself. You're not broken. The game is rigged, and always was. So now what? While the sun is setting outside Schopenhauer's apartment, he sits alone, as he often did. Beside him sits his poodle, Atma, named after the Hindu concept of the world soul. This guy knows the trap better than anyone, has spent decades mapping its walls, measuring its depths. And yet he continues, reads, writes, listens to music, takes his daily walk, engages in the endless dance of willing and striving. Why? Perhaps because seeing the truth doesn't end the game. It just changes how you play. You will still want. You will still reach. You will still swing between pain and boredom. This is what it means to be alive. But now you know. And by knowing, you can stop torturing yourself. The pursuit of happiness is the trap. The truth is the way out. Not freedom from desire, but freedom from the lie that desire can ever be satisfied. That might not sound like much, but it's everything.